If you're gearing up for the January LSAT or really any upcoming LSAT, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into the 7 biggest LSAT test day mistakes that even the most diligent students make. These pitfalls can derail months of hard work if you're not prepared. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to sidestep them. And as a special bonus, stick around for an 8th tip I'm saving till the end. This isn't mentioned anywhere else, and it might just save your test day sanity. First, for those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I personally increased my own LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. Now let's start with the first big mistake, not properly familiarizing yourself with the test day experience using LawHub. LawHub is LSAC's official platform that mirrors exactly what you'll see on the Prometric system come test day. And let me share why this is so important with a quick story. One of my former students, let's call her Sarah, studied for months using PDFs and practice books from a private prep company. She was scoring in the mid-160s consistently, but when she sat down for a practice test using LawHub, her score dipped by 5 points. Why? She was thrown off by the highlighting and underlining tools, not to mention the countdown timer. You got to know that LawHub is different from other platforms. LawHub and Prometric include highlighting, underlining, and a digital countdown timer. You want to know how to use these or how not to use them before test day. Now, private test prep companies aren't legally allowed to replicate LSAC's platform 100%. So, if you never use LawHub, you're not really practicing in real conditions. LawHub is about $120 per year, giving you dozens of real LSATs in the exact test day format. And no, they're not paying me to promote this, although they should be. And so given the value of getting a higher LSAT score and the cost of law school tuition, significant scholarship money, maybe even a full ride, $120 is nothing in comparison to ensure that you're not blindsided on test day. And so my advice is to devote a solid chunk of your final test day prep to using LawHub itself, simulate test day conditions, set up a quiet space, take the same break in the middle of the exam that you'll have on test day, and force yourself to learn the ins and outs of the platform. The second big mistake is to obsess over the proctor. Whether you're taking the LSAT in person or online, proctors can be a major distraction. In-person proctors at Prometric might walk around, stand behind your desk, maybe speak to other proctors, and it's easy to get paranoid, wondering if they're looking at your screen or if you're doing something wrong. In contrast, online proctors can randomly interrupt you in the middle of the exam to check your ID or address a tech issue, and these interruptions can, of course, mess up your focus. And so to handle the proctors, set the ground rules right at the start, politely. Say something like, every second counts because this exam is strictly timed. If you need to interrupt me for any reason, please pause the clock. And you'll want to repeat this to a new proctor if they take over mid-exam. And try to ignore what you can. If the proctor in person is pacing around or occasionally glancing at you, do your best to tune them out. Don't let external micro-distractions cost you valuable time. And of course, expect the unexpected. Sometimes they're just going to interrupt you without warning, and have a plan in mind. Quickly ask them to pause the clock if you can, then refocus on your test. Think of the proctor like white noise. Let them fade into the background so you can zero in on the question in front of you that really matters. Mistake number 3 is getting bogged down on tough questions. The LSAT is deliberately designed to trap you if you let it. Some questions are going to be extra tricky, and that's intentional. Here's a cautionary tale for you. During a timed exam, one of my students spent 8 minutes on a single logical reasoning question that she just couldn't crack. In the end, she ended up guessing on it anyway, but then didn't have the time to finish the last 5 questions of the section. That one question impacted 5 or more that she definitely could have answered correctly if only she had the time. So to avoid this mistake, flag questions and then just move on. The moment you sense you're stuck, flag it, skip it, keep going. You can always come back later. And when you do come back, you're going to have a fresh perspective with a second look. Your previous tunnel vision will disappear after you've had the chance to mentally reset. And remember, all questions are worth the same. A tough logical reasoning question is worth the same as a tough reading comp question or an easy reading comp question. Don't let one question take up precious time. Your goal should be to maximize your total number of correct answers. And spending 5 extra minutes on one question that you might miss anyway is the very definition of diminishing returns. The fourth big mistake is to let the countdown timer psych you out. The countdown timer that you see on LawHub and on test day can be your friend or your worst enemy. But here's what typically happens. You keep glancing at the seconds, ticking away, feeling your anxiety spike. Your heart rate goes up and your logical thinking goes down. Next thing you know, you've wasted 15 seconds or more just worrying. And so here's what you can do about it. First, hide the countdown timer when you can. You can click it to make it go away until there are only 5 minutes remaining, but making it disappear for the majority of the section can alone reduce your test day jitters significantly. And don't just do this on test day, do it during your practice tests too, so that it'll be second nature when you're under real pressure. And of course, once the 5 minutes are left, the timer will reappear. Train yourself to see this as a helpful prompt to wrap up or to quickly tackle flagged questions. The key is to keep your focus on the questions and your answers, not the ticking clock. The fifth big mistake is to stress over previous sections. Of course, the big difference between a practice test at home and the real LSAT is that once you move from section 1 to section 2, there's no going back. You can't change your answers once this section is over. And that finality can lead to mental rumination where you're thinking to yourself, wait, did I choose the right answer on question number 7? Or distraction spillover when you're worrying about your past performance, which then sabotages your performance on the next section. So to prevent post-section anxiety, practice mental closure. Once you move on, the section is done. Don't let yourself peek back at questions midway through or once you've finished a section during your practice tests. Also, practice mindfulness. A quick 10-second breathing exercise can help you reset your focus before the next section starts. It doesn't need to be fancy or spiritual, just a couple of deep breaths to clear your head. And of course, trust the process. If you've studied diligently and you have a consistent method, like reading comp annotation or logical reasoning stimuli approach, trust it. Second guessing after the fact rarely helps. You can't change the past, so funnel all your mental energy into the section that's live right in front of you. Mistake number 6 is believing it all comes down to this single LSAT. Yes, of course, the LSAT is critical, but don't let that pressure morph into crippling anxiety. The reality is, law schools only care about your highest score on record. They don't average multiple LSAT scores. And of course, you can retake. The LSAT is offered 8 times a year. If the January LSAT doesn't go your way, you can regroup for February, April, or beyond. And if you're thinking, do law schools really only care about the highest score? Yes, they do, because that's all they report to the ABA, which then factors into the US News law school rankings. Law schools have no reason to care about anything other than your best score on record. And so if you have a bad day, maybe you got sick, or the proctor interrupted you, the world won't end. Give yourself the freedom to do your best without the sky-high pressure that this is your only shot. And if your goal is to score in the 170s and you're feeling the pressure, I totally get it. That's why at LSAT Unplugged, we offer personalized one-on-one LSAT coaching for students who want to maximize their potential. If you're struggling with certain question types, you're not sure how to pace yourself during the test, or you're just looking to fine-tune your strategy for the biggest score jump possible, please feel free to reach out. You could check out the links below to book a call with me and my team. We've helped countless students get over that 170 hurdle. If you're interested, let's talk and craft a targeted plan to get you the scores you need for the schools you want. Now, mistake number 7 is to experiment with new strategies on test day. Test day is not the time to think, I'm going to try something totally new in logical reasoning, or maybe I'll read reading comp passages backward this time. Now, here's why. The first big reason is the mental load. Learning a new approach under pressure is a recipe for confusion. You want to be on autopilot with your known strategies that work, not fumbling with brand new methods. You also want to develop confidence and consistency all the way through into test day. And every tweak to your strategy is going to have a learning curve. If you haven't practiced a technique thoroughly in your study sessions, don't risk it now. Finally, test day should be where you perform, not where you experiment. Think of your studying prep phase as the laboratory where you test out new pacing strategies, question order approaches, or annotation methods. But by test day, you should already have a game plan that you trust. If you're still experimenting late in the game, be sure to keep it in your practice tests only, never on the real test. Now, finally, as I promised, an 8th bonus tip, don't rely on Ctrl F or the built-in search feature in Law Hub or Prometric on test day. Now, you might have heard that LSAT added a built-in search feature to replace or mimic Ctrl F, which is especially useful on reading comp. But here's the thing. While the search feature is there as a replacement for Ctrl F, it is glitchy, it's slow, it's not as robust as you would hope, so practice without it. If you find it working okay on test day, treat it like a bonus, but do not center your strategy around it. The safe approach is to instead develop strong reading and scanning skills so you're not dependent on a search function that might fail you. Now, avoiding the mistakes I've shared with you today can genuinely add 3 to 5 points or more to your LSAT score, especially if you've already got the fundamentals down. And remember, of course, the LSAT is just one step in your law school journey. Of course, it's a big step, but with the right mindset and preparation, you can and will handle it. And if you want the extra edge, maybe you're gunning for a T14 law school, feel free to reach out. You could check out the links below to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out on your journey to score a 170 plus when it really matters. And in the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.